My time with the North Shore Art League began in the 1950s, the early 1950s. I had gone to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, graduated there in 1950, spent 2 years teaching at Purdue University, and then took a job in the art department of Lake Forest College, which at that time did not have a summer program that I was particularly interested in. And so the league was available to me, where landscape painting classes were available to students, and I taught 1 or 2 of them, maybe even more than that, during the summers of the early 1950s. My recollections of the league go back to the days, of course, when the classes were held in that great old studio in the Winnetka Community House. We sometimes had classes there, especially if the weather was not good enough to go outside. But when it was, we would go to various locations around the North Shore area, sometimes to farms, sometimes to building sites, and one of the places that I recall most vividly were those occasions when we would go to Ravinia Park, to the pavilion there. The league back in those days, in the early 1950s, was one of the most impressive teaching agencies in the Chicago area. Keep in mind, to begin with, in the early 1950s, American art as a whole, and especially in New York, was beginning to rival and in some cases surpass European art, so that the scene had shifted from Europe to America to a large extent. That affected us in Chicago likewise. Students here knew what was going on in New York, knew painters, let's say, like Jackson Pollock, Willem de Kooning, Franz Klein, Mark Rothko, recognized these people as masters who had shifted the scene from Europe over to this side of the Atlantic. In Chicago at that time, however, was still a pretty parochial place. The artists who were working here, who had any kind of a reputation, let's say somebody like Ivan Albright or William Schwartz or Aaron Borid, these people were still working in the figurative manner that was true of Midwestern art in the early days, let's say in the years before World War II. So only slowly did Chicago begin to pick up the beat of New York and Europe, and gradually in the course of the 1950s that did develop among the younger artists here, so that eventually a kind of Chicago school of art did develop, in contrast to that of New York. Still at a distance, but nonetheless something that was identifiably Chicago. It seems to me that just as the art scene as a whole has increased in quantity and quality over the last 20, 30 years, that a place the league occupies right now remains valid. To be sure, there are professional schools, but it seems to me that the league is a place where people who are amateurs or maybe semi-pros can find space to work and work with teachers who will understand them and who will help them along. So in a certain sense, without getting involved in credit courses, people can learn a great deal about art and in a variety of media.